Net worth is how much you have in assets minus how much you owe in debts. So this is basically how much money you have, but minus how much you owe to other people. But also your things like houses and cars count as money for whatever they're worth. So let's say that W of T was a person's net worth at time T. And let's say they're a fairly typical college student. And G is the moment that this person graduated college, like the moment they walk across the stage with their diploma. Would you expect W of G to be positive, negative, or zero? Why would you expect this to be negative? Because many people acquire student loan debt. What would you expect W prime of G to be? Negative, they're actually losing money when they are walking across the stage. I'll buy that. So their debt is still increasing at that moment due to, does that make sense? So they're in debt, they're getting more deeply in debt. Now let's say that J is the moment they get their first real job with their college degree. And let's look at the interval that goes from J to J plus 1 year. So this is their first year of working in a quote unquote real job. Over this interval, would you expect W of X to be positive or negative? W of X is still negative because they're still in debt. They still owe more than they have. Does that make sense? Would you expect W prime of X to be positive, negative, or zero? Actually, everyone who voted for positive. Yeah, they're climbing out of debt. So they still owe money, but they're increasingly owing less and less. Now let's say we look at when they're retired. R is the moment they say, I'm done working, I don't need to work anymore. And let's say that D is the moment they die. So we can look at an interval from R to D, from the moment they retire to the moment they die. And let's look at, say, on this interval RD, and we're assuming that they retire, at normal retirement age, and then they pass away a decade later or so. What would you expect W of X to be here? Positive, negative, or zero? Surely at this point, they have more money than they owe, right? They're going to own a car, a house, they're going to have retirement funds, they're going to have money in the bank, they're going to have cryptocurrency, they're going to have gold and silver, they're going to have their collection of cats. Like, they have a lot of stuff that's worth a lot, and they've probably paid off their debt, or they may have a little bit of debt left. But hopefully they have more than they owe at this point. Yes. So W of X is going to be positive, right? Because they have more money than they owe. But you said they've lost their income stream. Maybe they have a small amount of income coming in, but now they're having more expenses. So there is possible, certainly, that they're living off of their savings or living off of their retirement. Yeah, so they're either paying more than they're making or they're maintaining. I mean, this is for a typical person. It's certainly possible if they got really wise investments that they would still be making more money, or if they had some residuals or something. So this shows how the sign, first of all, this is like what you would do in the real world. You might have a formula for W of X, but then you have to take this information that W prime of X is less than zero, and you have to communicate that in terms of how that person's net worth is actually changing in a way that they can understand. When W prime of X is less than zero, what that means is the net worth is decreasing. And being able to make that connection, which is that if you have a function where you can actually take the derivative, then when you look at the sign of f prime of x, it tells you something about the original function. So f of x is increasing on an interval is the same thing as saying that f prime of x is positive. These are equivalent statements. F of x is increasing is the same thing as saying that f prime of x is positive.